Hello everyone, and congratulations to making it to the halfway point of our coding camp. Starting after this lesson, we're going to focus more on all the skills we need, particularly to make our adventure game in Scratch. But today we're going to ease our way into game making by making a simple chicken catching game, and we're going to do that with the help of variables. We've actually used variables in our last class a little bit. We used the answer block to store all our answers for the dinosaurs questions, and that answer block is considered a variable. And variables are very important to coding. So once you define or name a variable, you're able to store whatever you like inside of it, including numbers, letters, or even if something is true or false. You can think of it like a box, like I have here. This is my toys box, and inside of it I have the value of one toy, a little Eeyore over here. And anytime I want to play with my toy, then I'm gonna make sure to call or use my toys variable. And there's also a feature of variables that makes it very useful to use, and that is I can change the value or what's stored inside of my variable at any time in my code. So if I were to have another toy, for example, this toy over here, I can add this toy into the box. So now I have a value of 2 toys in my box, and anytime after this I want to call or use my toys variable, I know that there's going to be a value of 2 toys in my box. And that is variables. So enough of that, we're going to get started with our chicken catching by going into Scratch. So we're going to log into Scratch in the top right corner as per usual, and also set up our sandbox by clicking on the Create button at the very top left. We're going to start off our project by naming it on the top over here, and I'm going to name it Lesson 5. Next, I'm going to delete my sprite over here. So get rid of Scratch the Cat, and I'm going to set up my game by setting up the stage. So on the bottom right, I'm going to choose a backdrop, and since we're going to be chasing chickens around, I'm going to choose an outdoor backdrop, this farm one right over here. Next, I'm going to choose my sprite. So on the bottom right, I'm going to click on Choose a Sprite. I'm going to go to the Animals category, and we're going to choose a chicken, or also known as this hen sprite right down here. So right here is our hen. We're going to start by coding for the hen first. So what we want the hen to do is we want this hen to follow our cursor around, or our mouse pointer, and we're going to do that without me having to click and drag it. So we're going to code for this first by grabbing our event block when the green flag is clicked. I'm going to go to our motion block and grab our go to block just out of habit, because we always want to code for our starting position, even though it's not particularly necessary for this project. And then we're going to code for this sprite following my pointer. And how I'm going to do that is with this block that says go to random position. And instead of random position, I'm going to drop down and go to the mouse pointer, so that when I put this into my code, it should go towards wherever I put my mouse. So I'm going to click on the green flag to test this out. And you'll notice that it does move towards the top corner here where my mouse was clicking that green flag, but afterwards it didn't really follow my mouse around. And that is because right now when my green flag is clicked, it will automatically go to the mouse pointer just that one time. But we want it to go to the mouse pointer over and over again constantly. And that might sound familiar because that sounds like we're talking about a loop. And so we're going to go actually to our control blocks, and we're going to grab this forever loop so that it will forever go towards the mouse pointer until we physically stop our code. So I'm going to put this inside of our loop, put this into our code and I'm going to test this out by pushing this green flag, moving my cursor around, and you can see it is always going to our mouse pointer. So that's doing exactly what we want it to do. That is the first part of our hen coded for. Next, we're going to have to choose our other chicks for this hen to chase around. So I'm going to choose a sprite in the animals category, and we're going to click on this chick right over here. And what I want this chick to do is I want this chick to appear at a random place, and whenever my hen touches it, I want to gain a point, and I also want it to disappear and reappear somewhere else in a random position over and over again. And so, first of all, when I code for this, I'm going to get my event block that we always start with, the when green flag is clicked block. And also, we're going to go into the motion block, but instead of this go to X and Y block that we usually use to code for our position, since we want it to go to a random position every time, we're going to instead use this block right here, the go to random position block that we used for our hen that we changed into our mouse pointer block. So now that we have it going to a random position when we start, we have to code for what happens if you touch the hen sprite. So if we touch this hen sprite, what we want to do is we want it to increase our score that we don't have yet, and I want it to disappear, and then I want it to reappear in another spot. So what I can do is, first of all, we know that we're going to do an if statement because I just said if it touches this hen. So in our control blocks, I'm going to take our simple if statement, and in this case our condition that goes inside of the little diamonds is if it's touching the hen, and that is going to be a sensing block. So in this aqua colored block, the very first one says touching mouse pointer, but when I click on this drop down list, there's an option to change it to touching the hen, and we're going to put this inside of our if statement. So now if it is touching the hen, then first of all we want it to disappear, which we know how to code for. So in the looks block, we're going to put that hide block in there. And when we're putting a hide block in, we always need to put a show block in so that it will show up again the next time we run the code. And usually I put this at the very beginning of the code. So right now, if I put this all together, when I click on the green flag, it will show up in a random position. And if it's touching the hen, then it's going to hide. So I'm going to test this out by pushing the green flag here. So I'm going to touch this hen to our chick, and unfortunately nothing happens. It does not hide. And this is a similar problem to our first problem we had with the hen not following the mouse pointer. And that's because this piece of code is only happening one time when the green flag is clicked. So it's only checking to make sure that it's touching the hen or not when the green flag is clicked. But we want it to be checking if it's touching the hen throughout the whole code until we push stop. So that again is using a forever loop. So we're going to go into our control blocks, grabbing our forever loop, and we're going to put all of this code and nestle it inside of our forever loop. So now when I push on this green flag and I take my hen and touch the chick will now disappear. Next, on our next step for coding for this chick, we want to increase our score or get 1 point. So what we need to do is first keep track of a score, and we do that by using variables. So on the left hand side, there's a dark orange area for variables, and you'll see that there's already one variable just called my variable, and this comes as generic or a default when you use Scratch. So I'm going to make my own variable that's going to be a bit more descriptive, and inside that variable I'm going to store my score, which is a number. So I'm going to click on this make a variable. I'm going to name it score because that's what I'm keeping inside of it. And you'll see when I push enter that this score box at the top over here in our preview window pops up, and on the left hand side in our variable blocks there's also a new block that's called score with a check mark beside it, and this check mark just dictates whether or not this score box shows or not in the preview window. So now that I have this score, I want to set it initially to be 0 every time I start my game. So my score always starts at 0. And how I do that is I take this block that says set my variable to 0, and instead of my variable, make sure to drop down and click on score. So you're setting your variable score to 0. And we're going to put that at the very top of our code so that at the very beginning of the game, the score is set to 0. Next, we want it to increase whenever we touch the hen. So how we do that is we take the second block here that says change my variable by 1, and we're going to change this variable drop down to change score by 1. And we want it to increase the score when we touch the hen, so I'm going to put it inside of this if statement. So now when I push on this green flag, the bird or the little chick is in the bottom left corner, and when I touch it, you'll see my score over here went up and my chick has disappeared. Now the last part of coding for my chick is that I want it to reappear in a different spot. And this time I'm going to have it clone itself. So I'm going to have it make a double of itself. And how we do that is in our control blocks. If we scroll down a little bit, there's a few blocks that have to do with cloning. And so one of them that we're going to use is the create clone of myself. So this will duplicate the chick, and we're going to put this at the end of all of our code in our if statement, so that if it touches the hen, then it's going to increase our score by 1 and hide, and then it will double itself. And we're going to have to code for what happens with this clone that it just made. So right above that block that we just took it from, there is this block over here that says when I start as a clone. And when you start as a clone, what do you want to do? Well, you basically want to do the same thing that your previous chick did, and that is all of this code right over here. Except we don't want it to set the score to 0 again, because we want to keep the score at 1 or 2 or whatever number of clone you are. So we're going to leave this here, and we're going to duplicate all of this code so that the clone will show at a random position, and then if it touches the hen, it will increase the score again, hide, and then create another clone to start again. So I'm going to duplicate this by right-clicking duplicate, putting it under here, and dragging this back to our code here. So now when I push on the green flag, our score is going to start at 0. When I touch the chick, it's going to go up by 1, and it will reappear at another random spot. And I'm just going to end up chasing all of these chicks around this whole preview window, like so. And this is all good and well. This is a fun enough game, but I want to add a bit of challenge to this. So right now my score is just going to go up forever and ever while I catch these chicks until I decide to physically stop by pushing on the red stop sign. But what I want to do is I want to add a timer on here, and the timer is going to keep track of how much time I have to get a maximum score. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my hen, and I'm going to set up a timer variable. And that timer variable is going to keep track of the number of time I have left. So in our variables, I'm going to make a new variable, and I'm going to call this variable timer for all of my sprites, and click OK. I'm coding in this hen sprite because this chick sprite already has quite a bit of code in it, and because it applies to all sprites, it doesn't really matter which one I code inside. So I'm going to start off with another event block when the green flag is clicked again. And in this case, when the green flag is clicked, I want to set my timer. So we're going to go to our variables. You'll see that our timer box is also in the top corner of our preview window now. And we want to set our variable timer. Drop down and click timer, and we're going to set it to however long we want to give the user or the player time to chase some chicks around. And I'm going to say 15 seconds for the sake of me having to play through this and preview it every time. So right now, when the green flag is clicked, like so, I have 15 seconds on my clock right now. And you'll see that though the score is going up, my timer is not going down. So what we need to do is we need to change our timer by 1, and we're going down, so we gotta make sure it's going -1, and we gotta do that by waiting 1 second every time this timer changes by -1. So in our control blocks, we have this block that says wait 1 second. So we're going to wait 1 second before we change the timer by -1. So when I push on this green flag, it's waiting 1 second, and it went down to 14 seconds. But it only did it one time because we only did this code right here one time. What we need to do is we need to do it over and over again until it hits 0. So what we need is a loop. And luckily we already have our control blocks open. I'm going to take this forever loop and put it around those 2 blocks that we need to repeat and put this all into our code. And for those that are used to doing this kind of thing, you will see a problem, and I'm going to show you what that is. So I'm going to push on this green flag. I'm going to catch some chicks, and we see the timer is smoothly going down 1 second every time, which is great. But also when we get to 0, like right now, you'll see that it continues going down into the negatives, which is not what we want because that is negative time. So what we need to do is code for it so that when it hits 0, or if timer is equal to 0, then I want to stop all of my code. So the key word there was if. So we're going to use an if statement. So I'm going to take this if block, and we're going to set the condition equal to when my timer variable is equal to 0. So under operators, I'm going to take my equals operator. I'm going to set my timer equal to 0. And in the variable blocks, I'm going to take that timer block I made to put into that operator and put that whole operator into my if statement. So that if my timer is equal to 0, then I'm going to stop all of my code. And the code to stop everything is also under the control blocks. If you scroll down, there's a block that says stop all, and that's going into our if statement. This if statement then goes into our forever loop, so that while it is going down forever, if it ever hits 0 while it's going down, then it's going to stop all of our code. So here is our final project when I push this green flag. So I'm catching all of these chicks right over here, and you see my timer go down properly, which is great. And once it hits 0, hopefully it will stop all of my code And it does, because my chick has disappeared, my hen is no longer following my mouse pointer, and my final score is at the top up here, which is 37. So please give this a try. If you want to make this, then go ahead. But if you just want to play this, then visit my profile, and I have that in the description, and you can let me know if you were able to beat my score. If you want to follow along in the advanced lesson, please follow along. Otherwise, I will see you all next week. Moving on to our advanced lesson, we're going to go up to my profile, and we're going to click on lesson 5.5. I'm going to push this green flag to start our advanced lesson preview. So just like in our main lesson, we're going to be chasing this chick around. And then you'll notice at the very end of our game that the chicken will tell you your final score right in the middle of the screen there. For our advanced lesson today, I delayed the chick's appearance by 0.5 seconds after it clones itself, so it moves at a slower pace. Second, I added a broadcast so that when the timer hits 0, the hen tells you your final score. Lastly, I switched the hen's costume and placed her in the middle of the screen when she tells you your score. I hope you give this a try, and we'll see you in our next lesson. For more virtual programming, join our summer reading club for kids, teens, and adults.